Hi, I'm Pam and I'm here to talk about video games. Today I'm continuing with my favorite games of all time, this time covering numbers 85 to 81. Most of the games on this part of the list are fairly recent ones. The first game I'm going to talk about was difficult to place on the list, because though it's a game I love, it's also a game that sometimes makes me hate it. Here's number 85. Darkest Dungeon was developed by Red Hook Studios and released in 2016. It's a turn-based dungeon crawling strategy game. You've inherited an estate from a relative. Unfortunately, that relative delved too deeply in the dungeons around the manor and unleashed unspeakable evils. This is a new and interesting take on the dungeon crawler. You're still taking a party to fight monstrous beasts in search of fortune, but the game adds a lot of depth by making the health and sanity of your adventurers part of the game. It's not just about hit points, as dungeons and monsters offer other dangers as well. You have to manage stress levels, personality quirks, and disease. There's a resource management and building part of the game as you attempt to improve the town around your manor. You can build a blacksmith to upgrade your hero's gear. You can improve the sanitarium, which relieves them of stress and negative quirks. It's nerve-wracking going through a dungeon, seeing your adventurers low on health, low on supplies, acting erratically, and having to decide whether to push through and risk them dying for the treasure at the end, or to retreat back to town and recover. I did find the game got immensely punishing in the later levels, and this is one of the only games on this list that I never actually managed to complete, but I sure had fun getting to that endgame. Next is a wonderful JRPG that doesn't get as much attention as many of the others from its generation, but I think it deserves it. Legend of Dragoon was developed by SCE Japan Studio and released for PlayStation in 2000. It's a Japanese role-playing game in which you play Dart and his companions, who are dragoons. The story is honestly not what stands out. This is your typical JRPG, vengeance-seeking, world-saving fare. What does stand out are the visuals and the combat system. The backgrounds in this game are beautifully rendered and look like paintings. And though the characters have the unfortunate PS1 polygonal look, if you can get past that, the character designs are really cool and have some of the most excellent armor I've seen in JRPGs, especially when in their Dragoon forms. The combat system takes the typical turn-based action and adds a little twist to it. For each attack, there's a timing-based button press. It's not a huge thing, but it does a lot to keep combat interesting. I often fall into the trap of mindlessly hitting attack each turn in JRPGs, but this little addition made sure I was paying attention. 83 is a Telltale game that I really enjoyed, even after I had kind of gotten sick of Telltale games. Tales from the Borderlands was developed by Telltale Games and released episodically on pretty much every platform between 2014 and 2015. It's a graphic adventure game based on the Borderlands world created by Gearbox. When this game was first announced, I wasn't overly excited. I enjoyed the world of Borderlands, while the loot grind didn't really appeal to me. Also, the Telltale formula had gotten kind of boring after playing a few games that used the same mechanics and choice-making illusions. But this was something special. Rather than focus on harrowing life or death decisions, Tales focuses on humor and characters, and has some of the best writing I've seen in a game. The world was interesting, and the relationships between characters made me buy into the game completely. Above all, the game is funny. There aren't too many games that can make me laugh out loud, but this one did multiple times. From the gunfights at Hyperion headquarters to the relationship formed between robot companions, this game was in turns hilarious and heartwarming, with the occasional Telltale-style gut punch. A real standout in each episode was the musical intros or interludes that paired a great set piece with a piece of music and ended up being some of the best scenes in the game. 82 is part of a resurgence of computer role-playing games, and it was one of my favorite games from 2015. Pillars of Eternity was developed by Obsidian and released in 2015 after a very successful Kickstarter campaign. It's a computer role-playing game intended to be a spiritual successor to games like Baldur's Gate and Planescape Torment. I wonder if we'll see those later on. Pillars drops us in a vast fantasy world as a protagonist who can see souls and people's past lives. From character creation, which is quite interesting and gives a ton of customizations, to dialogue options, to companion choices, the role-playing element is suitably deep and is backed up by very immersive writing, along with a good amount of great voice acting. The tactical party-based combat is real-time, making the action fast and furious, though it can be paused when you need to dole out orders to your party. The game looks and sounds great, with beautiful pre-rendered 2D environments, and is one of the best isometric RPGs I've played in years, though since its release, many more great ones have come out. One aspect of the game I particularly liked was the scripted scenes that kind of function like a page out of a choose-your-own-adventure book. When coming up against a particular challenge, the style changes to present you with your options in a way I thought was really well done. Last for this video is a critically acclaimed PlayStation exclusive that wouldn't be on my list at all if not for one spectacular DLC. The Last of Us was developed by Naughty Dog and released in 2013. It's an action-adventure game with survival horror elements. Humans have been infected and turned into cannibalistic monsters. You play Joel, who needs to escort Ellie, a young girl who might hold the solution to the infection, across the United States. It took The Last of Us longer than it should have to grow on me. I wasn't crazy about the combat, especially the stealth focus, and I didn't really get invested in the characters until they reached Pittsburgh, which was almost halfway through the game. But then, a DLC called Left Behind was released. In this, you play as Ellie before the events of the main game as she travels with her friend Riley. This campaign put my emotions through the ringer. It was in turns wonderful and heartbreaking. The main game gives away how it ends, but it doesn't make it any less effective. There was one particular scene that I loved so much. Ellie and Riley find an arcade. Though all the machines are broken and it seems like video games are a thing of the past, with the power of imagination and love, the game comes alive, with Riley narrating the fighting action as Ellie handles the controls. Left Behind gave me one of the most joyous scenes I have ever experienced in a game. Then, a couple hours later, it ripped my heart out. That's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you'll come back for the next one. If you missed it, check out the last episode in this series, or a video in which I talk about Darkest Dungeon a little more thoroughly. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.